Task is Sibusiso Mjikeliso is the Business Day senior sports writer. He wrote an article titled, "There are too many people with Daryl Cullinan attitudes running cricket." He's right here with us on a newsroom. Good morning. Thanks very much for having joined us.
Kendal, thanks for having me.
Sibusiso, I think first up, please tell us what you mean by that title.
Okay, I don't write headlines, but it was my intro. I did say the problem with cricket is the fact that there are a lot of people who think that black people aren't inherently for the sport of cricket, inherently for sports like rugby. I mean, Cullinan spoke there was a lot of prejudice in what he said, and it's an old attitude. And refer back to something that Dr. Tutuzeli Nyoka, who was the former president of Cricket South Africa, who also took issue with Cullinan's utterances, and he said that what Cullinan said is nothing new. He said that in the West Indies, the white colonizers used to keep blacks out, the sons of former slaves, from playing cricket by saying it's not a black man's sport. And,
wow.
And if that was true, there'd be no Sir Garfield Sobers, there'd be no Brian Lara, there'd be no Curtly Ambrose, no Courtney Walsh, there'd be no great West Indies team of the 70s and 80s if that was true. And up until very recently in South African cricket, they used to say that cricket isn't an Afrikaner sport. And that's evidently untrue, because our test captains, Faf du Plessis, A.B. de Villiers, are Afrikaansmen. And you can't say that it's not a particular person's sport. There would be no Stian van Zyl. So I took a particular issue with it, and it went back to a lot of things that happened in cricket that pointed to the fact that a lot of people think black people, black Africans most specifically, aren't for the game of cricket.
Very interesting that you bring all of that to bear, because one of the things, looking at the test team of late, it's been very mixed. There have been South Africans of all hues playing, and also seemingly succeeding in some of the formats once or twice. For example, winning this test against New Zealand right here at home, doing extremely well with that ODI side a few months ago. It was there were 8 black players in that particular side, and it seems as if we're on the right track. Is that correct or not?
Look, the players that are in the test team, they're there purely because they're skilled. They bring particular skills that the test team needs. Dane Pete is the spinner. Themba Bavuma is the number 5 batsman. He's played a brilliant role there. And of course, he's the first black African to score 100 for the Proteas. Kagiso Rabada is without doubt one of the best fast bowlers that probably will ever produce. JP Dumini's form has left a lot to be desired, but that's purely form.
Hashim Amla?
Hashim Amla, obviously, you can never doubt Hashim Amla's contribution. These are guys that are there purely on merit. But you look a little further down, it's just about the pool, the chances, who's getting the chances to do what in South African cricket. I mean, one of the things that I mentioned was the Boucher appointment, the fact that Boucher came from the wilderness, literally. He was saving rhinos, which is a noble act, but
it's not cricket.
The only cricketing thing he had done was chuck a few deliveries to Quinton de Kock as a consultant on a once-off basis, and the next thing he gets a franchise gig. There are only 6 franchise gigs. There are people who work their bums off just to get a top-notch job in this country, and there are only 6 of them. And of those 6 franchise gigs, only one person can be the head coach of the Proteas. So if you work so hard just to get there, and once you've gotten there, if you're a Mandla Mashimbi, who's the assistant coach at the Titans, and you've worked so hard to get your foot in the door, but all you will ever be is an assistant coach, it just says that it's just wrong. It's just unfair for anyone to work that hard. Yes, I understand that a Protea with 100 tests or whatever will be considered. I mean, Neil McKenzie is a batting consultant for the Proteas. Charles Langeveld is a bowling consultant for the Proteas. Alan Donald's played that role. So has Lance Klusener. So has Graham Smith. Yes, they'll be considered for those kind of roles. But for what we're doing in this country, it's very, very important that people see that they're getting an opportunity to get those head coaching jobs. It happened to Malbongo Maketa at the Titans as well, and he left and took his chances at the Warriors because they took Rob Walter, a conditioning coach, and made him head coach above Malbongo Maketa. Same thing that's happened to Mandla. So I was addressing that those kind issues, of thing. Yeah. That it points to that. It points to the fact that some people will be trusted and others will not.
You know, it's interesting that you bring all of that up because these are clear-cut cases where opportunities are not being created. In fact, they're being curtailed even before the person gets a chance to get into that space. I mean, there's a stat that I saw recently which questioned. The question was, how many African batsmen, test batsmen, have had more than 10 tests in this country? And it came back.
I can go further and say, how many African cricketers at all have had more than 10 tests? 2. Makhaya Ntini, Themba Bavuma.
And Themba Bavuma is only because he got his 10th just now in Centurion.
He got it. That was his 11th in Centurion. Makhaya Ntini has played 101 tests. So the top black player with the most tests has 101. His number 2 has 11. That's a 90 test difference. And now let's say the argument is the Proteas player carries a lot of weight and therefore can become a franchise coach. That means that there have been less than 10 black Africans that have played for the Proteas. How many white players have played for the Proteas? That means the pool will forever favor the white player. Are you telling me that the Titans would have taken Makhaya Ntini as the most experienced African black coach? And if they didn't want Ntini, Mfuneko Ngam is a test Protea, and he's run an academy of a lot of promise at the University of Fort Hare. But why wasn't he plucked out of nowhere and given a franchise gig? Why? If there's an explanation for that, because he's a test player, he's played for the Proteas. If the explanation is he played for the Proteas, then why couldn't he be plucked and given the head coach job?
Definitely putting the questions you ask, and we're very happy to have you here again, so we can get further and deeper into the topic, because it's a thorny path, but we need to cross that bridge and get to the other side of this.
No, certainly.
Sibusiso Mjikeliso, Business Day senior sports writer, giving us the lowdown on what he thinks is happening with transformation in the country. Clearly, a very long